This week on the podcast, we're going to talk about annuities, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What you need to know here on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts coming up next. Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist, Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. Phil and I are here to talk about annuities, a little 101, if you will, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I feel like we got to go... we got to kind of have that Clint Eastwood thing going on for the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to it. So we're going to talk a little bit about this, break down a few things here. Phil just kind of hit folks with some good information on annuities. It's the A word in retirement.
The A word in retirement. So
yeah, it kind of has a rep, good, bad, or ugly. So let's talk about it. You doing all right this week, my friend?
Yeah, doing really good. Doing good. Weather's finally starting to turn here, so. I don't know if we're going to keep it or not, but hey, I'll take it when it's happening. So
it's on loan.
That's right.
For a little while.
That's right. It's not snowing. That's a good thing.
There you go. Well, let's jump in and talk about this. I want to hit this and get some good information out to folks. So, let's just start with, what is an annuity, right? I mean, most people I think know what it is. Although it's funny, technically Social Security is an annuity. Like, it doesn't even say at the top of the check, it says annuity on it. But anyway, what is an annuity?
It's an annuity, so, and that's right. To me, the challenge always with an annuity is, there's all these, and you mentioned, it's got the bad rap. There's all these opinions on annuities. I hate annuities, right? Well, what is, what is it?
Right. Like, you should too.
It's like saying I hate mutual funds or I hate, cars. I mean, it's a broad topic. Right. What is it? So what is an annuity? Right. Well, there's kind of at a high level, there's two types, right? There's an immediate annuity or there's deferred. So immediate annuity means you've given the insurance company a lump sum of money. They're giving you this stream of income for the rest of your life. And you can design that in many ways, whether it's one lives or a joint life or, life with what they call period certain. So it's going to pay out for at least 20 years. There's a lot of ways to figure that or make the elections on that, right? And figure out what the income is that you want it to generate. So, but with that kind of an annuity, that's the purpose, is income. The downside to that is once it's done, it's done. You can't access that lump sum anymore. It's gone. You have this guaranteed stream of income. And a lot of times when people think of annuities, that's it. It's like, well, I'm not going to give the insurance company X amount of dollars and not have access to it again. But that is only one type. The other high level is the deferred annuity. And that's really more of an investment type vehicle. And that's where you get into the various types of investments you can have under this annuity, so to speak, umbrella. So
so a lot of people, when we hear Phil, we hear the variable, which is usually the one that's the ugly. That's the one that gets the rep. And then we have a fixed or a fixed indexed. Those are the ones that people tend to hear a lot.
Yeah. So that when you get into the deferred annuity category, that's basically the three types from an investment standpoint you can have. So a variable is.
Let's start there.
Like the name mentions, is variable, right? The investment experience is going to be variable. The reason for it is the underlying investments in that variable annuity they're called separate accounts effectively, but it's for all intents and purposes a mutual fund is kind of what it looks like, right? In fact, a lot of the same mutual fund company names that you'll recognize and funds you'll see inside a variable annuity. And they're run similar to a mutual fund, but you're going to have variability. It's going to be up or down in a market depending on how you invest. With that kind of a product, the insurance company doesn't make anything on the investments. They make money by charging fees. So yeah, to your point, that's where the ugly side of variable annuities comes into play, is that if you add, for instance, any kind of riders, different, whether it's a death benefit or an income rider, you start stacking up the fees, as well as there's just what's called an M&E, mortality and expense fee, that every variable annuity has, and then the sub-account fees for the separate accounts, the sub-accounts underneath it, it's not uncommon to have a fee ranging from 3 to 5%, depending on how many options you attach to it. Right. So yeah, it's a pretty significant fee to try to overcome then with an annuity from that standpoint.
Okay. And that's the variable.
That's the variable. Right.
The big one that gets a lot of push too is obviously the fixed indexed,
Right.
because we'll hear a lot of conversation about, hey, participate in all the upside and none of the downside.
And that's the thing. You're never going to get all the upside. So when we look at a fixed index,
Or I guess I should have said the upside
part
of
of the
the
upside of the
index.
index, right? But when we look at a fixed index, we first have to come back and look at it a fixed, because really a fixed index is a fixed annuity at its core. So the whole world of
Okay.
fixed or fixed index annuities work in a similar fashion, in that when you invest with the insurance company in that kind of a product, they're taking the principal and investing it in long-term bonds, because they know
Mm.
they have to pay you back this money at a certain point in time. So it
Hmm.
goes into their general portfolio, general account, where they're managing it typically in a portfolio of longer term bonds that they're going to earn a
Hmm.
certain percentage of interest on. So let's say they're making 5% on that bond portfolio. Well, the insurance company is going to make a certain amount. They've got a target of what interest they want to earn as a profit, so to speak, as a revenue
Sure.
to them. So let's say they're going to keep 2% of it. So if they're earning 5, 2% is their target that they're keeping. So then 3 is the fixed rate that you might get. So if you did a fixed annuity, that's kind of the general concept and how that works, right? So that's where the fixed interest rate is coming from. And different terms of a fixed annuity is going to then determine what term bond they get. And longer term bonds generally pay higher interest rates, although we're in this anomaly time right now where that's not the case. The longer you go out, actually
Mm.
bond interest rates go down. So then how does a
Mm.
fixed index fit into this? Is, again, remember, it's a fixed at a core, but rather than paying you a fixed interest rate, you have the option of getting an indexed rate. So that rate, rather than being just a, straight 3%, that insurance company is going to take the interest that they would have paid you and buy options on an index. So the easiest, just make it real simple.
Gotcha.
Let's say it's the S&P 500. So they
Right.
go to the market today, investment banking market, and say, okay, for X dollars, this 3% that they would have paid you, your interest, how much of the upside of the market can I get? And it's determined based on volatility and what's going on in the market today. Sometimes it's going to be more, sometimes it's going to be less. So they might come back and say, okay, well, we'll give you, a cap of 3% or 5%, whatever it is. And that simply means that, okay, well, you get the first, let's call it 5, you get the first 5% of the upside of a market.
Mm. Okay.
So
I see.
that's where you're getting more upside potential. And that's kind of the draw to the fixed indexed, is that typically over time, you're going to have a higher earning potential than you would in a fixed. You're never going to have the full market potential because you now have downside protection.
So
Fixed,
they kind of give you that
yeah, they
they
said
kind of
it,
give you that ceiling, if you will,
yep,
and the floor
a
where you don't
floor,
have you
right?
really
So
can't fall below the floor. Yeah.
your floor is the principal, right? You're not going to lose any principal. So the only thing you're putting
Yeah.
at risk in a fixed indexed is the interest. So the
Okay.
worst thing that can happen in a year is, and again, this is real broad, general kind of terms. There's a lot of variables and things that can go into it, but generally, the way they work is the worst thing that happens in a year is you just don't get any interest. So the index is down that year. The S&P is down.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's a flat year, let's
It's a
say. Yeah,
flat
or down.
year,
Yeah.
or down year. Well, you didn't lose principal, but you now didn't get interest either, because remember, they bought options on the index. And how options work in
Gotcha.
this case is, if that index is up, then you're going to get a certain percentage or portion of that upside. If the index is down, well, you get nothing because the option just expires worthless.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, that is how they work in general. So again, coming back to, should I invest into an annuity? Well, the first thing is, what is it? Where does it fit?
Sure.
Understanding kind of that structural mechanism of how they work helps. So,
Yeah, and I think people, they either get oversold and
yes,
underexplained,
yes,
right? Or they get they're just the worst thing. I hate them and you should too. There's
right,
actually a
yeah, because
person that actually that's their whole marketing
that
campaign.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and that's
That's their
where,
whole marketing campaign.
if you do any kind of Google search on annuities, I mean, just be ready, because there's going to be just a,
Sure. Yeah.
a slew
Well,
of
that's why I
information.
called it the A word.
Yeah, most
Yeah,
of it on
that's
the
why I said
bad
it's the A
side.
word.
So,
Yeah, exactly. So it's
So,
almost treated like a bad word, right?
right,
But again, it could be the tool that does exactly what you need it to do. So I
right.
think being closed off to saying, "Well, I've heard enough bad things, I'm not going to do it," and I think to be fair, Phil, they definitely had problems, more
There's,
problems years ago. They've
yeah.
certainly improved quite a bit. In that regard. So let's talk about that, and we'll kind of keep this succinct this week. When might an annuity be appropriate? Right. So that's the big question for a lot of folks. Is it appropriate?
And when it appropriate really comes down to first understanding what it is, to your point of, don't close your mind off to it. Understand it's a tool. So when I'm
Yeah.
describing this to a client, and at the end of the day, I'm a fiduciary, and I'm going to present to a client all options that I think are appropriate in their scenario. It's up to them what they want to
Right.
do. So to me personally, as a fiduciary, I need to explain how an annuity works and does it fit in their scenario to give them that option. If I don't feel I'm fulfilling my fiduciary duty. I mean, there's a lot of, and not to
Yeah.
get down a rabbit hole, but a lot of fee only advisors that don't deal with the annuity or the insurance side because, well, that's not, it's not a fee only type of product. But I think as a
Right.
fiduciary, you really need to understand how this works to see is it a good fit. At the end of the day, whether it
Sure. Of
fits or
course.
not is up to you. So when might it be a good fit? There's really, to me, I think a couple of different scenarios. Number one is guaranteed income. So if
Okay.
in
Right.
your
That's the big
scenario
draw.
you
That's the
you
attraction.
want some guaranteed income, either because you
Yeah.
feel like, hey, I need to have a higher level of guarantee than what I have. So maybe the only guaranteed income you have is Social Security. So you mentioned early on, I mean, that Social Security is an annuity. Pensions are annuities effectively, right? It's a stream of income
Right.
that's guaranteed for life. So when you're looking
Hmm.
at your income need, if you're saying, oh, when I add, my guaranteed portion of my income up, it's only 50% of what I am planning on spending, and I'd really be more comfortable if I had 75% of my income guaranteed, knowing that you call it
Okay.
mailbox money, right? Knowing that, hey, doesn't
Sure.
matter
Yeah.
what's going on in the market. I know that every month this is what I have coming in. So that's where an annuity fits in one place because it's one of the only other places you can get fixed income like that. This guaranteed lifetime income, you know, is an
Right.
annuity. The other place that it might fit is going to be if you want that safe, secure type money, right? So you want some principal protected money with some
Hmm.
upside potential. So when you look at kind of that safe and secure investment, there's only a couple of options, right? If you truly want, hey, I know I want to have a guarantee I'm not going to lose the principal. So the only options
Hmm.
you're going to have really are going to be money in the bank, right? Because you're not
Okay.
going to lose the principal there; it's guaranteed, or some
Right.
kind of an annuity. If in this case, a fixed or a fixed indexed annuity that has that principal protection. Beyond
Yeah.
that, there's
There you
really
go.
no other investment that's going to give you a principal protection. So that's where it might fit again, is it gives
Yeah.
you that principal protection, a little more upside potential than what you're going to see, in any kind of a bank type product, CD or money market, whatever it is.
Sure. Well, and that's typically where we get back into all of these conversations flowing in and out of each other, the three worlds of money, the three qualities of money. It's like, okay, well, I want some safety and some protection, and here are the things that give that to me. Well,
Right.
okay, but I also want some growth. Well, okay, these products or these things can do a little safety and a little growth, or these
Right.
products do a little liquidity and no, it's figuring out what you need, which is why you need a different uh, you know, a set of tools in your basket because some things you're going to need for liquidity, some things you're going to need for safety, and some things you're going to need for growth. And no product does them all. Many will do two, but never three.
That's right. Yeah, you talk about the kind of the three principles of money, and that's exactly what it comes down to.
Right,
These are designed for that safety, and you're going to give up some liquidity. So you got safety, a little bit of growth,
right,
but you're
right,
giving up some liquidity potentially in an annuity.
right.
So
Because you have terms and periods that you're in.
right, which again, at the end of the day, it's not the insurance company trying to say, "Oh, I'm going to hold on to your money." They're doing it because they're buying long-term bonds. And so for you to get
Right,
out of that early, they're going to have to liquidate investments that are long-term in design that may not work right. They may end up losing money getting if you get out early. So that's kind of
Which is
why they
where
have
you hear surrender charges,
right. That's why
the
they have the
surrender
surrender
charges and things like
charges and
that.
those kind of structures in place is to help hedge
Yeah.
you wanting to leave early. That's not how the annuity was
Yeah.
designed. But you do have the out if you
Yeah.
need to or want to. So
Exactly. Yeah. So I think some, and I was going to ask you some of the misunderstood pieces, but I think we just kind of walked into some of that. I think, probably most succinctly is people feel like, oh, I get into one and it's a 10-year, let's just say 10 years for easy math, or 5-year or whatever. I'm totally locked in. I'm totally stuck. I cannot get out. And there is things you can do, but you just have to realize that there could be penalties for it.
and with most annuities, there are what's called a free withdrawal privilege. So even though maybe it's a 10-year annuity, that doesn't mean you
Mm-hmm.
can't touch any of it for 10 years. Most annuities are going
Okay.
to have some kind of a free withdrawal, they call it, each year, where you can get access to some of the principal during that 10-year time frame. So,
Gotcha.
but to kind of wrap up, the ugly side of it, because we touched on a few pieces of it, really, and a lot of these discussions we have come out of my discussions with clients or
With
prospective
client. Yeah.
clients. So the
Yeah.
ugly side of these annuities, I think, are where it's either
Yeah.
misrepresented or misunderstood, one of the two, or a
Yeah.
combination
Yeah.
of both, right? So I had a client actually come to me the other day. They said, "Hey, I was talking to my, in this case, their advisor, their insurance advisor that helps them with Medicare. They had already been on Medicare before they met with us. So we've got somebody in our office that helps with that. But that's kind of
Okay.
the background, and they've been kind of concerned with the
Right.
markets." And he was saying, "Oh yeah, you need to be out of the market. They got this great annuity. It gives you 10% bonus and it's paying 8%, and they're thinking, well, this
Mm-hmm.
is this is great. How much can I put in this,
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
they wanted to
Sure.
talk to me about which is great. So we got together, I kind of walked through and I represent that same insurance company and they told me who it was. I said, okay, well, let me explain how that really works. And yes, it gives 10%. Yes, it gives an 8% annual interest credit. But that
Okay.
bonus and the interest credit isn't on the account value. It's on what's called the
Mm.
income value. And that's where the annuity world gets really muddy because a lot of these
Okay.
products, so the deferred annuities, you can have an income rider attached to it where you're not giving up the principal, but you can, for generally an extra fee, or if it's not an extra fee, they're kind of baked into the way they work. The insurance company will guarantee income for life. Well, they're going to have to determine how they're
Right.
going to do that. And that's where this side account, it's really a fictitious side account that's running, that the only purpose for that account is to determine when you turn income on, what that number is going to be. And that's where this annuity
Mm.
product landed. It was designed such that this side account, the income value account, they gave you a 10% bonus on it. They would grow that account at 8% simple interest per year that you deferred it. So yeah, that truly happens, but that account is not an account you can ever
Technically, yeah.
get to, right? It's not like you can
Yeah.
in year 10 say this, account is growing to X amount, cash me out. Well, no, you never get it.
Right. Right.
It is only
Right.
used to determine at that point, I want to turn income on. Now we look at this table that says, okay, well, you're 65. At
Gotcha.
65, you get 5% of that account value, that protected account value, or 4.5 if you do joint lives for the rest of your life. And once you turn
Gotcha.
that on,
Okay.
that
Yeah.
account, that side value goes away. So was it missold or just misunderstood? Well, I don't know.
A little bit of both.
We kind
Yeah.
of
Maybe a
hear, a
little bit of
lot of
both.
times we hear what we like to hear, and you hear a 10% and an 8% growth, and it's like, well, that's
Yeah.
awesome, you know,
Sweet. Sign me up.
sign me up, But the old adage of if it's too good to be true, then yeah, it probably is. And obviously this was way too good to be true. But
Yeah. Okay.
is that a bad product? No, not necessarily. It's how it works. Understanding how that product
So,
specifically
yeah.
is designed to generate a higher guaranteed income.
Yeah. Is it doing what you want it to do? Is it doing what you need it to do?
Correct.
Right. Again, you can't get to everything you want in one deal. So you have to
Yes.
have the right set of tools. And, look, we're at 20 minutes, so we'll have to wrap it up here, but you can't you can't cover the annuity world in 20 minutes, but we wanted to kind of give a kind of some broad strokes here as to why it's worthwhile to have an open mind, whether to any financial product, really, as to whether or not it's going to be a useful tool in your tool belt. But that's why you got to sit down with a qualified professional who can explain it to you and go through things the right way, not just maybe more of a financial salesperson who is just trying to give you the highlights and you go, ooh, I like that. These shiny bells, turn on, blinky, blinky lights. Let me do that. Right. So if you need some help, folks, make sure you're sitting down with a qualified professional, sitting down with a fiduciary, which, again, if you watched our show or listened to us enough, you probably know what that is, but real fast, it just means Phil has to do, a person who is a fiduciary like Phil has to do what is in your best interest all the time when it comes to your finance, which seems like a no-brainer, but there are standards where you don't have to do that. So just make sure that you're sitting down with a qualified pro like Phil. And of course, if you need help, reach out to him at philstaxhacks.com. That's philstaxhacks.com, 248-888-7530, 248-888-7530. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And we'll see you next time here on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts.
Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.